Good morning. Day 3. We are talking about your third niyama, which is asteya, so non-stealing. Yes, not stealing from other people, not hoarding things like TP, but also, more importantly, not stealing from yourself. So thinking about all the ways in which we could self-sabotage ourselves in any given day, right? Think about low self-esteem, putting yourself down. We pick other people up all day long. So today's really a day about doing the same thing for you. That's all. Keep it simple. And it's not isolated. You want to think about just planting these little seeds. You can tuck them into your pocket, tuck them behind your heart as you move through your practice. The physical practice is really a way of reminding ourselves that consciousness doesn't reside just in our head. We think of our mind as being in our head, but consciousness flows throughout our body, and the physical practice is a wonderful way to remind ourselves of that, to refocus our awareness, our intention, the connection to your physical body. So let the physical practice do just that. We got Genevieve joining us today. It's actually a little bit of a surprise for her, so that's fun for me. But we're going to get started in the hips. So we're going to set up on your back and go for happy baby. If you're ready, you're going to find comfortable position on the back. You can grab toes, feet, knees, really doesn't matter, back to the thighs if that's more comfortable. You're just going to let yourself sink towards the mat. So heavy shoulders, heavy hips. You're just going to find a little bit of breath, right? Get that energy flowing right up to feel the toes. 3, you're going to start to expand the ribs, fill up, maybe sip a little extra at the top of your breath in. Exhale to rinse. 1 more for good measure. Fill up and release. So straddle stretch. You don't need to go for a full-blown split, but you're going to take your legs nice and wide apart. Again, just like happy baby, place of comfort, you can reach for backs of thighs, ankles, shins, toes, no matter. But rock a little over to the right. Just let yourself settle in, a good breath or 2. Notice how that feels, and then rock through the other side. Again, just a breath or 2. Maybe you got to roll out ankles, wiggle toes. Notice what feels good. It's going to be your best litmus test. And as you roll back through center, you can tuck your knees in gently towards your heart. You don't always need to squeeze them, right? But flex toes, rock and roll enough to get yourself up onto those biscuits. And we're going to set up maybe one of my favorite postures to say, Triyang, Mukai Kapata, Paschimottanasana. Similar to Janu Sirsasana, where you would take your foot to your inner thigh, except you're going to take your hoof behind you. So you can take a peek at Genevieve here. And engage that front leg and flex those back toes. So a lateral twist over that front thigh. Find the breath, and we're reaching. Again, it's a matter of comfort, so you're going to roll the shoulders down. Right? You're going to move your gaze somewhere that's more comfortable on your neck, or maybe invites a little bit of stretch. And reach here for 3. But start to squeeze into your hips. Got your foundation here for 2. You're going to squeeze that left quad. Nice. And then exhale, gently release. Opposite side. Keep it real simple. Keep facing the camera. Awesome. It is now Jen's favorite pose. Triyang Mukai Kapata. Paschimottanasana. So lateral stretch over the side, through the side body. You know, maybe you got to turn your heart towards your thigh, reopen up again. Explore what feels good. But more importantly, you're starting to explore what's getting you to breathe. Just make sure you're rolling that right shoulder, left shoulder away from the ears. 3, flex toes, find engagement around the hip joints, that front quad. Gets a little squeeze here. You're going to take 1 more big breath. Nice. And then exhale, bring yourself back through center. All right, as you start to cross legs and come through tabletop, fanning out your fingers, take a moment to draw the belly up and in. But then as you curl your toes, lift your knees. Let them hover just an inch or so. So you want to feel that engagement run down the length of the spine, right? Shoulder girdle to hip girdle. And then take your hips a little up and back. So downward facing, right? Place of comfort. Doesn't need to be aggressive, but let yourself really land in the moment. Not thinking about where we're going, right? Part of not stealing is being present, not living in the past, not worrying about the future, just being right where you are. So as you take a little bit of bend in the knees, drive your sits bones right up to the sky. You're going to take your right leg to reach. Three-legged dog, your choice. Bend the knee open, peel the hip open, wiggle some toes. Just two. You might even extend to the side while reaching, but activate that left hip, press it under. You're going to reach up to the sky one last time, and then knee towards your nose, low lunge. Just pause. You're going to inhale to lengthen the spine. Exhale, squeeze around the hips and let them sink a touch. And then lower the back knee to meet the mat. You're going to press the top of your back foot down. Start to squeeze that left quad and lift the knee a little. So drawing a little stretch up through the quad. Front of the hip flexor, squeeze that left biscuit. You can use blocks or tented fingertips, or you might reach for the sky. Palms to heart, hands to hips. You know you get a lot of options here, but take 2 more breaths. Keep squeezing into the hips. Part of stretching the hips is that engagement. We need the co-activation for your hips to kind of loosen up any of your muscle fibers, honestly. So big breath to reach, and then exhale, gently drop the palms. Standing leg split. As you press forward, don't worry about the split part. You're going to drop your left hip a little lower. Yeah, it's going to feel like it's lower than the right, but as you do that, you're actually coming square. So a couple times, peel the hip back open like a three-legged dog, and then slowly square the hips. You can do that one more time. As you open the left hip, press the right hip under, and then exhale, square the hip. One more time. Peeling open, we're going to come to half moon. So maybe you reach for a block or tented fingertips. You got a dog. Maybe you got the coffee table right next to you. Kitchen chair, really doesn't matter. But again, stacking the hips. I'm going to let Jen struggle a little, keeping our distance. I was going to bring the broom practice for when we open, right? But again, squeeze the hips. The stretch is supported by that strength, so press the right hip under. Yeah, fall over, come back. And then we're going to lift the heart, wrap figure 4. So you're simply crossing the left leg up and over. Now, if you've toe-heeled off to get a sip of coffee, come on back, no worries. But when you arrive, flex those left toes. You're going to drive your sits bones way back, find your way into your heel. Remember, day 1 was all about that balance in Utkatasana. You're going to use the glutes, your hamstrings, find that hinge at your hips. 2, press your shoulders down, engage the breath, right? Irrigate your body with some energy here, rinse it, and wrap right into eagle. Yeah, there's a little bit of work happening in that right leg. Acknowledge it. It's going to shift in a little minute. So again, level hips, square hips, engage them. We're really focused on inner thighs and pelvic floor. So you want to squeeze those little suckers together. You can drop your palms to heart if it makes it easier to focus. Up to you. Nice job, Jen. One more breath. And you're going to open up to warrior 1. So as you step back, be slow to root the back foot. Heels down. Again, you're still squeezing into the hips. So the left hip is pressing forward. You want to squeeze the left biscuit, and you're going to come back to that stretch through the quad and hip flexor you had in low lunge. Yeah, and we're scissoring that right hip a little bit behind you. Fill up. Awesome. Open warrior 2. You take up some space here. Right? And support yourself. Feel the strength of your body, feel the lift, bring the breath in. Instead of always rinsing out and giving up the energy, put that in reverse. Soak it up. Reverse the warrior and exhale, slowly side angle lunge. Again, think about stretching up into that right hip. So sink the hip a little, press the right hip under. We're just taking 3 breaths here. And we're going to drop the shoulders. Drop your jaw. And then start to reach for the floor. Through that low lunge, fingertips, we're going to start to set up half pigeon. So you're working your front knee to your mat. Make sure your knees are in line with the hips. You can take a block under your heart, forehead, hip if you want. But otherwise, if you're on board, the first 3 breaths, it's a place of comfort. And if that's on your back, then take time to set up your figure 4. But if you're in regular half pigeon, you're going to stick with me for a hot second. You're going to find your palms now. As you lift your heart, you're going to squeeze into the biscuits. So hover the fingertips, and from strength, you're going to lift a little as you squeeze the hips. Exhale, sinks you a little. Just the hips. Inhale, lifts a little, squeeze, and sink a little. So hips are a little bit more buoyant. We're looking for that co-activation of strength. You're going to do that one more time. Squeeze the hips and lift. Exhale, sinks to find the palms, and we'll press up and back, three-legged dog. If you want to peel the hip open, go for it. And then you're going to come back to your downward facing. Left toes to the sky. Go ahead and peel open. Right, bend the knee, wiggle toes. If it feels good to draw circles in the sky, extend to the side while you're doing all the things that are going to get you to breathe. That includes maybe peeling the shoulders open a little. If you're familiar with flip dog, go for it. Otherwise, just one more breath. Nice job. And then we'll exhale, knee towards the nose, low lunge. You're going to pause. Right? You can take anything you want underneath the palms to support you, but bring the back knee gently down. And find the top of your foot pressing. Really press it. You're going to make sure it's not kind of sickling in. Draw those toes just a little more directly behind you. Boom. There you go. It's like I hate you. Yeah, get in there. Lift the knee, squeeze the quad. 3 breaths. All right, it's up to you. But don't steal from yourself here. Maybe you're more supported with blocks into the palms, books, coffee mugs, right? Do your practice. Take one more generous breath and then drop the palms. Standing leg split. Curl your back toes, press forward. Work those hips. Okay, a lot of the stretching of the hips is coming from the strength. So if you want the stretch, you need the stretch, we're going to squeeze into those biscuits. 3 times we peel open and close. So peel that hybrid 3-legged dog and a little slower square the hips, right? Open up. You can bend a knee, wiggle toes, right? You're taking up any shape that works for your body. Close the hip. Maybe even turn the toes to face in. And then one more time. Peel open. Close the hip. Maybe get a little more in your standing heel, right? That bit of balance. And then we'll open towards half moon. So yeah, lifted leg always gets the love, but don't forget about that left hip. Press it under. Be willing to fall. It's all a part of the actual pose. And the wobbles are a tremendous amount of work for stability, so don't hate them. You actually want to love them. You're going to get one more generous breath here. And as you set your gaze somewhere, we're going to wrap that figure 4. So as Jen draws the toes over, she's going to flex them. Again, move those biscuits way back. Stick them back, Jen. Yeah, palms to heart, hands to hips, do a little kung fu, all good stuff. We want those wobbles because it's making your hips and your knees work for that stability. You're going to wrap eagle. You only got a couple more breaths and we're going to be on both feet. Remember, just a short, quick and dirty 20 minutes this morning, so squeeze those inner thighs right up into your pelvic floor for 3. Yeah, irrigate the body with some breath here. Rinse out those ujjayi breaths. Maybe fire up some lion's breath, and you're going to step back, warrior 1. And you reset yourself up on the mat, no worries. Again, just like the low lunge, stretch through the front of that right hip. So you want to squeeze the quad. You want to squeeze that little bun of steel there on the back side. You're going to reach up one more breath, maybe with gaze to follow fingers. And then open warrior 2. Take up some space and support yourself, right? By breath moving inward, find a little bit of lift, right? Maybe some of that uplifting sentiment comes from the physical body first. The mind might follow a little easier. Flip the palms, reverse it. Now stretch that side body and then release to low lunge. Working slowly towards your half pigeon or side angle. Lied. You almost got away with it. All about stretching the left groin, left hamstring right up into the hip. So press the left hip under. We're always cueing you to peel that right hip open. You're going to do that somewhat naturally by now. Focus on that left hip. One more press. And then release this time for real. Palms come down, half pigeon. Your version of it, right? But remember, if you're sticking with regular half pigeon, knees in line with your hips. No stress. Right, settling in with breath. Feel how your mind is a little more dispersed throughout the body, not just maybe stuck in what feels like your brain. You got consciousness in all of your organs, highly intelligent body, so keep your mind dispersed. If you're on board, if you're on your back or you're doing something else, maybe you prefer frog, whatever, stay there. But if you're in regular half pigeon, you're going to find your palms, press and lift your heart a little, working from the hips. Squeeze the biscuits and literally lift your hips a little out of the pose. Exhale sinks you back. So 3 cycles, squeeze and lift a little, and then sink a little. All on what feels good. So it's a little bit different for each of our hips. And do that one more time. Nice job. And then slowly find palms as you curl your back toes, 3-legged dog. Get a little space in the front of the hip. And as you come to your down dog, we're going to set up knees to the floor. As you come through table, and cross your legs, come onto your bum and grab a whole lot of blocks. You might even sit on coffee table, couch, really does not matter. Might want a few more blocks, but we're going to set up full pigeon. Not even a half a pigeon. I've caught Jen by a little bit of surprise, so you can face the camera, and you can sit on a block if you want. I sit on at least a couple of blocks. We're going to start with taking your right foot out in front of you. You want to take your shin parallel to your mat, whatever's in front of you. And then you're going to stack the other leg on top of it. And yeah, if you're 4 feet from the floor, don't worry about it. You want your hips to be able to be level. You can stick blocks underneath thighs and feet. Right? It's probably about where I get these days. And it might take a little bit of time to work in. So not like regular half pigeon where we often cue you to put your heel where it's most comfortable here. You really want to stick with flexing toes and working your shins parallel to the front of your mat. So we're going to take another 8 breaths here. So make sure you're breathing. Make sure you come back to sitting up nice and tall, placing yourself on purpose. So long spine, shoulders heavy. And as you start to settle in and there's less holding on for dear life, maybe less swear words flying through the brain, maybe you have a little bit of room to adjust. We might walk the heels out a little bit wider so that we're working eventually towards placing our knees again in line with the hips. No. 3 breaths. So set your gaze somewhere. Yeah, and maybe you've somehow miraculously got to the floor. Kudos, right? But that's not where you have to get. So support your body. This body is going to support you for the rest of your life, so be nice to yourself. One more generous breath here. And then be gentle as you unravel. So take time. Still going to sit on a block. You want to take a comfortable seated position. Kind of shake out those legs for a moment. We're going to take it to the opposite side. So you're just hoping I forget. I was close. Left leg first. This might be worse. I don't know about you, but I have a labrum tear and some things happening in the right hip, so I need some extensions on the blocks, maybe. Build yourself up even in your mangled full pigeon here. Be willing to have a little bit of fun with it. So 8 breaths. What kind of breath do you need? Maybe you need soothing, calming breaths for whatever you're up to next. Maybe you need to fire up a little bit of energy. It's going to be a little bit different for each of us today. But again, I invite you to come back to your physical body. That's really the access point in these 8 limbs of yoga. So as we work through the yamas and niyamas and all of the other limbs and components of yoga, it's a big, messy ball. But this physical practice of yours is a good entry point, right? So just planting little seeds. Not worrying about the future, not worrying about the past, not even pieces of your physical practice today. One more good breath. And then this time as you unravel for real, we'll take that comfortable seated position. I'm just going to spend a good solid minute. It's probably about 12 or 15 breaths. Placing yourself on purpose. And if you have a little extra time today, as you begin to float all several pounds of your head on top of your spine, and with as much lightness, let your jaw drop, shoulders drop, even your tongue soften. Just give yourself these 10 breaths. Shifting the focus to the inhale, so you're drawing in the energy, plugging in, filling up. Reminding yourself that this is something you can come back to throughout your day, and it doesn't take a lot. Sometimes you need just 5-10 minutes, a good laugh, a couple of wobbles in a balancing pose to reground you. For 4. 3. This time sipping a little extra at the top of the breath in, and a deeper breath out. 2. Fill up one more time. And as you exhale, let it all out. As you bring your mind to heart center with gratitude for this body, with respect for those around us. In this practice, we move our thumb knuckles to forehead center, and as always, we bow and we say, Namaste.